What's up, bitches, and welcome back to Nerdgasm. I'm in the pilot seat. I look shiny as fuck. Sonic is here to go fast, and it's a match to get a number one contenders match today. We got a good one. We got the consigliere Kirk Kowalkowski, who is just on a roll here in Nerdgasm, and Nico, Suave, Regoli back again after a strong showing in the last one. It's going to be a great match today. Here to help me judge, the one, the only, the Bo Sucks, bearded one, Cody Newberry. How you doing, Cody?
I think you should say Warzone singles champion.
You're right. I apologize. The Warzone singles champion.
But this is going to be great. Kirk had a really great performance last time. Somebody that probably didn't want to be in Nerdgasm for too long with all the other categories that we shortened him. And then now he's been on a roll. And Nico won pretty dominant fashion, but also debated the worst I've ever in one question that I've ever heard. So it's a weird combination. I'm really excited to see how this plays out because I think somebody is probably a favorite in this match, but in debate, anything can happen. It's like round two.
Anything can happen as we get into round number 2, and anything can happen as we Nerdgasm off. All right, over to the Hulk, Tim Brzakala.
Please never say that again.
And you guys say I'm cringe. Jesus.
Never change. Yeah, we are changing the name. If you don't know, we're changing it after the next title match.
You just gotta lean into it as long as we have it, right? Right.
I have mistakes were made. So yeah. Hi, I'm here. I'm here to judge. This is gonna be a good match, as Cody said. Kirk getting a knockout in his last match. That super impressive match, and Nico playing pretty well against Ryan. A player who came back, I believe, is now 2-2. So looking for some more wins on his record. It's gonna be an exciting match for sure.
Absolutely, but we'll go ahead. We'll go over to our competitors, starting with Nico, Suave, Regoli. You are on a bit of a comeback streak here in Nerdgasm. How do you feel about your chances coming into this one?
First off, I'm very glad that you told me that you're changing the name of this league because I was actually going to design Tim a belt.
Don't.
And now that I know the name's being changed, woof. But this is interesting because apparently Kirk and I live like just 4 blocks away from each other, and yet this is the first call we've actually been on together. Like that's nuts. Like this is a battle for Pittsburgh. This is a battle for Westmoreland County, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. Kirk is someone I've had a lot of respect for since he debuted, and I'm happy to be in the same ring as him.
Nico starting to guess who the location of his and Kirk's places. We'll see if he can guess who his way to a win here today. We'll go over to the consigliere, Kirk Kowalkowski. Kirk, you had a really strong win in the last one. Are you looking to keep the momentum going into this one? How do you feel about your chances coming into this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to keep that going. I was, like Cody said, I was kind of like 50-50 over there. It's going to go on, but like I think that win really rejuvenated me in debate, so I'm glad to be here. And Nico's a great competitor. I know how how seriously he takes this, and I appreciate that. And I love playing against somebody like that. So I'm excited to play him. And I know Nico is known for his martial arts skills, but he's going to learn today that I am the CS Kim of the debate dojo. That's a AK Valley joke that only Nico's going to understand, but
I've got Phil Merritt in my corner. I'm fine.
I don't know anything about mixed martial arts except for what I learned from The Art of Self-Defense starring Jesse Eisenberg. So we'll go ahead. We'll get right into this one with our regular rounds. They work like this. You're going to get your 1 minute opening, your 5 minute freeform, and your 1 minute closing. We got 4 of those. And if someone doesn't win it through 4 of those, we go to the speed round. So we'll get right into the first question. In James Jimmy Bond, who is the best James Bond is the question for Bond today. So we will go ahead and start with Kirk. 1 minute for your opening when you start talking.
James Bond's been around for a long time now. I mean, we're 50 years, 50 plus years his character's existed. A lot of different guys played him. We've seen a lot of different takes. So I went with the character who embodied the character, or the actor who embodied the character the best, and that is Pierce Bronson. He took the best from all the previous Bonds, the physicality and the presence of Sean Connery, the boyish, good-natured attitude of Roger Moore, and the grittiness of Timothy Dalton, brought all those together and made the most perfect version of this character. And I think he is the most exciting Bond. He's the best. He's played the role best. I think he's the best Bond in terms of his relationship with women, which has always been a very problematic issue with the Bond character. I think overall he's just been the best, and I intend to prove that in this debate.
All right, stopping early. We'll go ahead and go over to Nico. Who is the best James Bond? 1 minute when you start talking.
So I went with Timothy Dalton of The Living Daylights and License to Kill. I believe he's the best portrayal of James Bond because he checks all the boxes that make a great Bond. James Bond is larger than life, and Timothy Dalton begins his Bond tenure with a larger-than-life entrance, parachuting out of a plane, blowing up a truck being driven by a KGB agent, parachuting out of that truck and landing onto a yacht in which he's immediately handed a glass of wine by a sexy woman. His incredible smooth voice makes him ridiculously charming to the point that all he has to do is say a few words and look into the eyes of women like Cara Milovi, Lupe Lamora, Pam Bouvier, and they're all instantly eating out of the palm of his hand. He's a master manipulator in that he's able to fool Georgy Koskov and Franz Sanchez at the same time they're trying to fool him. He's noble and loyal to a fault, that he's willing to go outside his jurisdiction to get revenge on Sanchez for feeding Felix to a shark. His emotions motivate him. Dalton uses that emotion effectively to tell the story and make him the best Bond.
Time. All right. Getting it right on the money there. And 5 minutes, gentlemen, as soon as I disappear, keep it clean, no filibustering, have at it.
With all due respect, Kirk, Pierce Brosnan's Bond is a bit of a dipshit. He's always one step behind each of his villains, and it repeatedly lands him in trouble. Throughout the 4 movies he's in, he gets captured somewhere between 6 to 8 times, so almost twice per movie. And within the first 10 minutes of Die Another Day, he gets captured and tortured. And that capture gets him benched because his cover was blown, because he's a dipshit. And he's always one step behind of his antagonists.
Well, of course, Bond, there's always going to be he's got to get captured. If he doesn't get captured, he's going to be escaped. Every time he gets captured, he finds a way to escape. That's James Bond.
But the rate of capture is very high for Brosnan, whereas with Dalton, it's very low.
Well, that may be more the story issue than the character itself. What I want to address is the fact you said about James Bond being larger than life. That is true. And Timothy Dalton is the smallest Bond there's been. He's the most small scale character. He takes that and also almost makes Bond into like an indie character. He takes everything about Bond and shrinks it, and maybe makes it a little more realistic. But at the same time, you lose that bigness.
He made that small, but he's able to be larger than life because of his attributes, because of how charming he is, because of his voice. His voice alone, smooth like butter. All he has to do is say something, look into a woman's eyes, and he has them eating out of the palm of his hands. Pierce Brosnan has to struggle to get women to like him.
No, Pierce Brosnan doesn't have to struggle to get like him. Pierce Brosnan may struggle because he's actually dealing with women on his level. That's the thing I love about Pierce Brosnan. He is the least misogynistic James Bond, and I know we're grading on a curve, but if you look at the women in his movies, you have Jinx from Die Another Day, you have Michelle Yeoh in Tomorrow Never Dies. Probably I don't even want to call her a Bond girl because that's an insult.
Those 2
to that
movies
character.
he tries to bench.
She
tries to bench those 2 women on in those movies because he always sounds.
But he can't because they're equal to him. These are equal characters that get equal time. That's the great thing about his character. Now, Timothy, like I said, his character he has the grittiness that Dalton tried to bring, but brought too much. He expresses that. He brings the best of Connery. He brings the best of.
That's because Dalton is he uses his emotions.
He's very
motivate
himself. He
himself.
doesn't have a lot to bring to the table. He's not a very interesting character. That's why he only lasted 2 movies. He didn't have a lot of staying power. He only had 2 movies and they weren't very good, and that's why they moved on for him very quickly.
Why are there Brosnan's movies?
GoldenEye is considered to be one of the best movies, and it wasn't because and then again, Brosnan's movies are flawed, but it was the flaw in the movies that were the problem, not the flaws in the character.
We're not debating the best movies, though. We're debating the best Bond.
Exactly.
And another issue that
Dalton's Bond was flawed, whereas Brosnan's maybe movies were a little flawed. But again, you have GoldenEye, which was considered one of the best. Dalton, and if you talk about the villains, Dalton had some of the dumbest villains. Joe Don Baker is one of the most in Die Another Day. The first Dalton movie is one of the worst Bond villains ever, and he keeps up with Dalton. Dalton has trouble keeping up with him till the end. Dalton is just weak. There's not much to him. Let's address the elephant in the room. Your guy only got the job because my guy was busy. Pierce Brosnan was the first choice when Roger Moore was done, but he was under contract to Remington Steele, so they went to their second choice. As soon as his contract was up with Remington Steele, they brought Pierce Brosnan in.
They made the better choice with Dalton, though, because Brosnan's movies as James Bond flopped.
Obviously not, because Dalton only did 2, and Brosnan did twice as many. I mean, Brosnan had a lot more staying power.
Brosnan got kicked out. Like, he said on record that it's because of his performance in Die Another Day that they benched him. They pretty much banished him from the Bond culture. And getting back to Brosnan's Bond, he lets his attachments blind him so much, and that goes back into why he's always one step ahead of people. He was so attached to Alec that he never bothered to look into Alec's family connections to the Soviets, and lo and behold, it gets him in trouble. His romantic ties to Paris Carver made him and her an instant target for
he's
Elliot
a flawed
Carver,
character. Bond has always been a flawed character, and he overcomes those flaws. You know about his attachment. Look at Dalton.
But Brosnan's sex addiction, but as Bond, Brosnan's sex addiction gets him in more trouble than Dalton's did. Dalton was always one step ahead of every single one of his villains. He never let his attachments cause him to get into trouble.
Because they wrote stories for him that are a lot different than they wrote for Brosnan. They wrote very small stories for him because he's a very small character, and he was able to keep up. There wasn't a lot going on in those Dalton movies. That opening sequence that you described, that's the opening sequence to every James Bond movie. Every James Bond has a huge entry like that. That doesn't make Dalton special. That was just what they did for him. But Dalton's movies were small, so the stories were small, so he didn't have as much.
Less is more.
There's a lot more going on.
1 minute.
There's a lot more going on in Brosnan's stories than there is in Dalton. So Dalton's Bond has a lot more to handle.
And because of everything that's going on in those movies with Brosnan, the plot can sometimes be hard to follow and just annoying to follow.
Again, that's the movie.
Sometimes less is more. Sometimes a smaller story, you can do a lot more with.
But not with James Bond. I mean, you even look at Daniel Craig's Bond, who is a small, like a less over the top, more realistic character. Even his stories are larger than life. They put him in those situations.
Really, his technology is basically the smartphone in my hand right now, and that kind of takes Craig's Bond down a peg. Also, Brosnan, he is reckless as hell. Like, he breaks every single building he walks into, and he breaks every bit of technology that Q gives him. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because that's what he brings that character. He has that relationship with Q that Dalton didn't.
But because Dalton's want a Bond that's more careful.
One note on his
time. All right, we have a slobber knocker going on here. All right, so Nico, we will start with you. 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
All right, to the judges, I want to ask you, what do you see in a best Bond? Do you want someone who's careful, who's cautious about keeping their cover and actually is able to maintain their cover? Or do you want a Bond like Brosnan who keeps breaking shit at every single turn and who keeps getting captured and keeps getting outsmarted? Dalton's Bond does not have that issue. He's always one step ahead of his opponents. He doesn't let his relationships with women cause him to get captured and put on a medieval garret or double-crossed in an ice palace like Brosnan's did. Dalton has a lot of smart maneuvers, like using the cello case in the phone booth to get the KGB off his trail. Kirk may have mentioned that Dalton's films were smaller, but he was able. You can do a lot more and make the most of them when they're on a smaller scale. And I feel like Dalton did a lot of that. Brosnan undermines women at every chance he gets.
Time.
Damn it, that was bad.
All right. Judges strike a damn it. That was bad from the record. All right. Kirk, 1 minute when you start talking for your closing.
Yeah, when I think about James Bond, the first adjective I think of and the first characteristic I want for my Bond is careful, cautious. That's what James Bond should be. Yeah, he shouldn't break stuff. He shouldn't be doing like adventurous stuff in these action spy adventure movies. How ridiculous is that? Nico proved himself. Brosnan is the more fun character. He's doing all this crazy stuff. He's getting all this trouble so he can get out of it. Nico says he undermines women. He doesn't undermine women. He uses the relationships with the women to his advantage because the women characters that he's paired with are on par with him and equal to him. He is the most charming. He's the best looking. He brings the presence. He brings the humor. He brings the fun. Dalton was very one note. And again, remember, Dalton was the substitute. He was the second choice. They wanted Bronson all along. As soon as Bronson was available, he took Dalton's spot.
All right. Stopping early. And we'll go ahead. We'll bring the judges back in. Pretty good fight. We'll go ahead. We'll start with Cody. Where are you leaning away?
Yeah, there's a lot of things thrown in this fight that is very interesting to me. I think I would hire Timothy Dalton to be a nanny, not a Bond. I think careful is not the correct. I don't think that was the greatest approach. I understand the spy thing, but then I also thought Kirk's dish, which didn't make a big difference, but where he kind of put it is as soon as his 2 movies were up, they got Bronson. They were able to put him into the films. I'm surprised no Craig was picked, but I have to give it to Kirk. I think Kirk just handled it a little bit better, and the major points of him being destructive didn't work for me because in a Bond, which you asked the question to the judges, I want a Bond that's a little bit more destructive than a guy that's neat and tidy. So I'm going Kirk.
All right, that's 1 for Kirk. Tim, where are you leaning and why?
I'm also going to go Kirk. Yeah, I was also surprised when we got the answers to this question, and Craig or Connery was not picked. I was a little surprised even more. I was like, okay, we're going with these 2. This is going to be interesting, and I think both players. I think just Nico took it from a different perspective and looked at the character, try it through a different lens to try to talk up Dalton, and I just don't think it worked. I think that he made some very strong points, but ultimately every point he made, Kirk was able to combat really nicely. So yeah, I give this one to Kirk.
All right, so Kirk gets the first point. All right, so we go on to the second question, which is in the category of Star Wars. And the question on the table today is the most iconic lightsaber duel. Most iconic lightsaber duels. We will start with Nico. 1 minute for your opening when you start talking.
The Duel of the Fates, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul, showcases the endless possibilities of what a lightsaber duel can be when the Jedi and Sith are at the absolute height of their powers, when their maneuvers aren't confined to limits of cybernetic limbs and a crappy respirator, when the combatants are actually trying to fight each other and win, and when the environment itself is having an actual impact on the battle. The Duel of the Fates is iconic for several reasons, ranging from the beautiful score accompanying the duel, the fact that it's the first ever 2-on-1 duel we've seen on the big screen, the first time we've ever seen a double-bladed saber, the first lightsaber fight to feature a non-human combatant, the inclusion of a much more Chinese-influenced acrobatic style of weapons combat. You also get a lot of fantastic character development when you look at the little things the 3 combatants are doing within the duel to showcase how their personalities differ from one another. It's that combination of all those things that make the Duel of the Fates the best and most iconic lightsaber battle in Star Wars to date.
Time. All right. Good opening. We'll go over to Kirk. 1 minute when you start talking.
Most iconic lightsaber duel. I had to go with the duel that was the culmination of the the main, let's face it, main storyline, main through line of the entire Star Wars saga. I went with Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi. This is a fight where you see, like I said, everything in the entire trilogy had been building up to this. This is the ultimate showdown between these two characters, these two iconic characters that we've gotten to know and care about and understand. And it is a battle that is wrought with emotion and feeling and meaning, and just it just pushes you through the rest of that story. There's so much going on. It's a simple fight. It's not choreographed heavily. It's more about the characters and the emotion and seeing what happens in that story, what happens to those characters. That's why I think it's the most iconic.
All right, stopping a little bit early. Will it pay off? We're going to find out as we get to the 5-minute freeform. As soon as I disappear, time begins. 5 minutes. Let's do this.
So, as a fight fan, the best fights throughout history, be it something like Griffin versus Bonner, Ali versus Frazier, Shogun versus Henderson, Zhang versus Joanna, Rock versus Austin, those were all fights in which the combatants were actually trying to win and doing everything in their power to win. You get that in my lightsaber battle. Kirk, you 1.5 of the two combatants in your lightsaber battle don't want to be facing each other. Luke wants his dad to have a kumbaya moment, and the Anakin half of Vader wants Luke to come join him. So it's like they're not really trying to fight each other. It's more like Darth Vader is having that Joker trying to get Batman to break his own code moment.
Okay, that's fine, because everything you mentioned, those are real fights. Those are actual fights between two people who are just fighting to beat each other. My fight, and what these fights are, they are part of a story. These aren't just fights that we're watching to see, oh, who's going to win. It's a fight about character. And that's what my fight has. Your fight is heavily choreographed. I honestly had to go back and look and see. I don't even remember. I haven't watched Phantom Menace in a while. I don't even remember why they were fighting, other than the fact that they all have lightsabers. Instead of a Star Wars movie, everybody with lightsabers has to fight each other. My movie, it always built into this. You're exactly right. You're arguing my point. It's hard for both of them. He doesn't want to kill Vader. He doesn't want to fight, but he has to bring Anakin back. Vader wants to kill him, but there's that little bit of Anakin in him, and you have the Emperor stopping him. You have all those things going on.
But we're talking about the key word here is lightsaber duel. Like you're talking about.
I would say the key word is iconic.
I mean, yes, iconic, but it's also iconic lightsaber duel. The main thing you're missing here is the lightsaber action. You're talking more about the emotions within the characters than you are talking about the actual lightsaber combat. Yeah,
because that's what it is. I mean, you can't separate the two, but I mean, your fight is completely devoid of that.
You didn't even pick the most iconic.
Your fight is between two one-and-done characters. Qui-Gon Jinn, who is this guy? Why is he here? Obi-Wan said that Yoda trained him. Who is this guy even? Darth Maul, no motivation, no character.
But it's this battle that made Darth Maul so iconic that he was brought back for 2 cartoon series.
Okay, we're not talking about cartoons. We're not talking about extended universe. This is movies we're talking about. Within the film universe,
battle itself
2 one-and-done characters
iconic.
Again, here's my problem with your fight. You watch that scene, it just jump, flip, jump, flip, 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 jump. And then
that's real martial arts, though. You can say that's choreographed, but here's the thing: Conor McGregor fights with the style in which he'll use a flashing technique to set up a basics. But that's real martial arts at play here.
Conor McGregor is just fighting to fight, and if that's what you're into, that's fine. But we're talking about a movie. We're talking about a structured story.
The most memorable thing happening in your battle, where a lightsaber is used, is Luke spamming the lumberjack.
That's so awesome. That's what's so great about it, because he's back there, and you see, and it's.
But when you have actual martial arts
emotion. Let me have my time here. You see emotion. You see. There's acting there. He's hiding behind it. Sister, you have a sister, and he comes out. Let me compare my fight to your fight. He comes out hacking because he's going to kill Leia, and he's hacking. He doesn't care. Your fight. Obi-Wan gets pinned behind that force field. He watches up till now and flip.
That adds to the anticipation.
No, hold on. Let me finish here real quick.
No, you've been talking for 5 minutes straight. Let me say something
here. So he's behind the force field. You think, okay, now the emotion's going to come out. Now something's going to happen. That force field goes down. Flip, jump, kick, the exact same. It's like Qui-Gon never died. It's the exact same fight. There's no emotion. There's no gravitas. Your fight is cotton candy. You keep calling it Duel of the Fates because that's all it has. You listen to this with the sound off. There's not much.
Are you going to let me talk anytime soon?
Go ahead.
All right. That's a the ray shields themselves add to the battle. Like, what are some of the funniest Mortal Kombat arenas you like to fight in? It's the ones where
Again,
the
no story
arena
to that.
themselves
There's
fight
no
back
story.
from time to time.
No personality, no character.
1 minute.
It's the ones where the arenas fight back and add something to the battle. It gives you something extra to fight for. You have those cool scenes where, like, Darth Maul using the Force to open the door, super kicking Obi-Wan off the bridge, him having to Force jump back up and chase after the battle. You get some character development from Qui-Gon engaging in the battle meditation. You see Darth Maul stalking his prey like a lion. Obi-Wan jumping just to get the jitters up because he knows he's going to have to sprint to join his master and get back into the fight. You have cool moments like Darth Maul using the hilt of his saber as a weapon, something we haven't seen before, to land the killing blow on
Real quick,
Qui-Gon.
let me get something here. Let me get something here real quick before we're done here. The one last point I want to make. Yours can't be the most iconic because it's part of the prequels. It suffers from prequelitis. It's intercut with Jar Jar and young Anakin.
You didn't even pick the most iconic fight between Luke and Vader.
You didn't pick the most iconic fight using Duel of the Fates. You should have went Obi-Wan, Anakin.
All right, we'll go ahead and get into closings, starting with Kirk. 1 minute begins when you start talking.
It's obvious Nico just wants a prize fight between two blank characters who are only there to punch and kick each other and do nothing else. That's not what we have. This is a narrative story. This is the culmination of a story. My fight has that all. It has all that emotion of these two characters as father and son, and all that iconic relationship between these two. His fight is a bunch of kicking and swinging. It's like, oh, cool, there's a double-bladed lightsaber. That's awesome. Oh, cool, there's this red guy with horns. He's awesome. Who is he? I don't know, but he's cool looking. Look at him. Look at his lightsaber. It's awesome. That's all this is. It's fluff. It's basically like made for, like, it's for children to watch. Like, there's nothing iconic about this. It's a prequel. It suffers from prequel stuff. People are always going to look at it as a prequel fight, and yeah, it's the best thing in this movie. But still, it's just a prequel fight. Mine is from the most important story in the entire saga. The culmination of that story, all the emotion, all the gravitas that goes with it.
All right, we'll go ahead. We'll go to Nico. 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Kirk didn't even pick the most iconic battle to feature Luke and Vader. That's Empire Strikes Back, because you have actual good sword fighting taking place. You have the mind game still at play, and then you have that big reveal at the end of "I am your father," making it as iconic as it is. In this case, there's barely any actual lightsaber combat happening with Kirk's battle. It's just like, I don't want to fight you. Swing of swords a few times. I don't want to fight you. No, I want to see lightsabers being used to their fullest capacity. I want to see the Force being used to its fullest capacity, and those stories that Kirk says don't exist, they're being told as the lightsaber battle goes on. You get to learn the personality of the three combatants. You get to learn that Darth Maul, he's got an arrogant side to him, but he's also an apex predator. Qui-Gon Jinn, keeping his composure. Obi-Wan, he's still got a lot to learn at this stage of his life. He's that antsy kid with a lot to prove. This battle cemented Ewan McGregor as the workhorse of the prequels. Darth Maul, he was brought back. Lego Star Wars didn't change a single thing about my battle. It changed Kirk's.
All right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to bring in the judges.
Lego Star Wars?
Tim, I'm going to let you go ahead and start on this one as per your request.
Yeah, I wanted to go first on this one because I would like to make a formal apology to Cody Newberry, Brooklyn Vail, Kaleb Boatman, and Kaleb Koho, because in my first round of my match that I won the Nerdgasm title in, me and my opponent, Robert the Shelob Parker, screamed at each other for 5 minutes straight, and it was awful. And this round was exactly like that. So I would like to formally apologize to the people who judged on that match because I now understand what you were feeling. That being said, I think both players, I think it comes down to they both kind of had a differing opinion on what the word iconic means and their interpretation of the question. Kirk took it as iconic within the story. and Nico kind of went from it more of like a iconic lightsaber, like what is the actual the physical manifestation of the fight. In the end, I'm gonna go Kirk because I think he painted a better picture of the fight itself, the emotion behind it, the story behind it, whereas all Nico had was the acrobatic physical fight. I think Kirk talked about that too with the hacking, but also the story and everything behind it. So I think Kirk just had a couple more legs up on him there. So I'm giving it to Kirk, personally.
All right. I'll go ahead and I'll go next. You both kind of stated that the Empire Strikes Back fight was the most iconic in your own fights. So I got really confused. But listening to the arguments and the nitty-gritty of like what makes yours iconic, I think I slightly lean Nico. I think Nico gave me a little bit more in terms of the actual fight and what made the fight iconic, whereas Kirk kept kind of arguing the story points of why that part of the story is iconic, but didn't do much in the way of explaining why the fight itself was an iconic fight. So I lean slightly to Nico, despite the Lego Star Wars comment that made no sense at the very end.
I'll explain later.
Go ahead, Cody.
You don't have to explain later. My thing is, I hate this question. I'm going to be real honest with you. And it's not because of a form, like how it was formed or delivered. I don't have a problem with that. It's just like, it's kind of like how I felt like this question goes is best Gary Oldman movie. Is it the best film starring Gary Oldman, or is it the best film with Gary Oldman, like a Gary Oldman in the lead role? Like you fight two different angles. One fought it on the lightsaber fight. The other fought it in the crux of the story. I'm giving the actual how I took the question of what it is the fight, which I completely personally agree with Kirk that it's for a child scene that is really nothing at the end of the day. But he told me why it is important of the lightsaber. Just in the thing of what it did, the lightsaber mattered in the question for me. Not that it personally in my mindset, I think the Vader one's more important, but how it was delivered, I have to give Nico the point of this one.
All right.
All right, we have a 1-1 tie as we get to the third round. The third question, which is in the world of the Planet of the Apes franchise. The question is, what is the best scene in an Apes movie? Kirk, you will be starting 1 minute for your opening when you start talking.
When you think Planet of the Apes, there's one scene you think about, that great iconic scene with the Statue of Liberty. That's what I went for best scene of the Planet of the Apes. It's been parodied to death. It's been ripped off to death. Everybody talks about it. But when you look at it and you look at it through the idea of seeing it for the first time, it's so beautifully shot. It's so beautifully paced and angled the way you see it and the way the reveal is done. And when you think about seeing it for the first time, it's like, wow. It reshapes that movie when you go back and watch it again, knowing what the characters all know now. It is not... It's not telegraphed at all. It's a complete surprise. Going into it, if you were going to think of it going in fresh, I know none of us have, but it is a great scene, not just because of the iconic ending, but because of the way it's shot, the music, the acting. Heston's great in it. It is such a great scene. Best scene in Planet of the Apes. Hasn't been done. Outdone.
All right, time. And we will now go over to Nico. 1 minute for your opening. What is the best scene in the Planet of the Apes franchise?
So for my scene, I went with Caesar's first words from Rise of the Planet of the Apes in 2011. Dodge Landon, played by Tom Felton, and Caesar are having their standoff in the free roam area of the ape sanctuary, and you can cut the tension with a knife. Landon is electrically prodding Caesar. He starts fighting back. You see the apes in the enclosure getting riled up in the background. Caesar starts ducking and weaving. He grabs Tom Felton's hand, and you hear the nostalgia button gets hit when Tom Felton says, "Get your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape." That's the true iconic line from the first Planet of the Apes movie, and it's a nice callback to the old in this new take, as you have the apes being the protagonist now, and Caesar, in response to Tom Felton being the dick that he is, he just rises up and he says no, and everyone jaw drops. The apes, Tom Felton himself, the guy with the crank up there.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into the main rounds of debate.
Okay, Nico, I'm going to start this time. I can't believe you brought this up in your opening because I went back and watched this scene. I hadn't seen this movie in a while, so I went back and watched it, and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed.
I did that with your scene.
That big moment where that supposedly big moment is completely telegraphed, but the big moment where he says his first word is stepped over by that cheesy callback from Draco Malfoy. That just kills. You're right. There is some tension building, and it all gets sucked out of the room with that horrible callback. Kills the entire scene, kills all the tension, and it makes the rest of the scene a joke. And it kills the moment of that first word.
And Charlton Heston's overacting makes your scene a joke. Like you say, the first time you see it, you feel the emotion. I felt the urge to laugh and was really fighting it because, like, I understand it's supposed to be a serious scene, but Charlton Heston is a product of his time. He's dating the scene by his overacting. And also, you've got Nova on the horseback. She has no idea what the hell's going on. She has no idea what he's crying about. She's just like looking at him, getting down on his knees in the sand. Is like, okay, he's a dummy.
Yeah, you see the confusion from her. You see the lack of understanding, but that's juxtaposed with him. You see that camera pans over, and he actually plays part of this very subtle. He just gets off the horse, and you see, if you watch the scene in the details, he gets off the horse, and it's just his posture. Just him processing. He takes several minutes just to process what he's seeing.
And Caesar's posture.
As we're processing it, because they do that such a beautiful thing where they pan over and you just see the torch and you're not sure what it is yet. They pan over some more and you see the crowd and you're like, oh my God. And then it's just him standing there and he's feeling what you're feeling at that time. It just, oh my God. And then he becomes overcome with the emotion. It's like, yeah, he's overacting because that's a moment where someone would overact. How would you react if you realized your entire planet had destroyed itself and you're stuck 1,000 years in the future? You have no way of getting home.
We're already destroying ourselves. I'm pissed off from the fact that we're doing nothing about it. But anyway, you want to talk about the posture of Charlton Heston as George Taylor, the posture of Andy Serkis as Caesar, the way he just stands up. He's standing up for himself. He's standing up for ape kind in that moment as he utters the word of no. Everyone is in shock of like, holy shit, an ape just spoke. Even the apes themselves.
No one saying that because everybody sees that.
Are you going to let me talk? You've been talking. I gave you your time. Let me say something.
Well, I had to keep going because you kept interrupting me, but go ahead.
Little interruptions, not as big. But for one thing, that scene, my scene, is relatable because of the fact that everyone has had that dickhead in their life. Whether it be in puberty, growing up through school, or in their workplace, they've had to deal with that one dickhead who has just oppressed them, who has just made them feel like they were lesser than. And Caesar, people can relate to that moment where they have finally decided, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to tell this dickhead no. I'm going to tell him to fuck off. I'm going to take him into the shed and beat his ass because I've had enough of his bullshit. I've had enough of being told that I am nothing.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't make it a great scene for the play, especially within the frame of Planet of the Apes. And you want to talk about bad acting? Draco Malfoy is not a great actor, and he's not doing a great job in this scene. Andy Serkis might be doing okay with all the other stuff, but he's just like, get your dirty hand off me, and he's sweet. He's so over the top and so cheesy in this. He's just as bad as Heston.
He was keeping it very subtle. Like I think there were ways he could definitely overact, and he was not doing that. He was keeping it very subtle. He was being very composed.
No, he's screaming, yelling, and waving that thing around. He was just as, I mean, he's terrible in that scene. The only thing you have going for that scene is it's not shot very well. It's all just close up. You get that little pan at the end, but it's a very boring, very flat scene. It's not very interesting to look at. Like I said, it's completely telegraphed. You know the apes are going to talk in this movie. The more exciting thing, the better scenes in this movie are later on, the fights on the Golden Gate Bridge, the scenes in the jungle, when he talks to, what's his name in the final scene? Caesar is home. That's really, that's like an emotional scene that you feel something there.
At least my scene has apes. Your apes look so ridiculous that you deliberately picked a scene in which they weren't there. And this is the Planet of the Apes franchise. You avoided the apes in your scene pick.
Where was the rule that there had to be an ape in the scene? This is the best scene in the movie. There's great scenes in the beginning without apes either. It's that has nothing to do with this. That's a moot point. I just picked the best scene. My scene has a great score. You got that music, the way it's shot.
Your scene doesn't have any music at all. Like I watched it.
It does have music when you watch it when they're approaching it. You have that scene where they're on the beach. You got those great wide shots where you just see them and the water coming in, and then you see those scenes shot through the bushes where you're like, you're looking in on them and see them, and you got those drums and that music, and then you get this. Then it's silent when you see the statue. Then it's silent. He falls to his knees. It fades to black. It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautifully done scene. Your scene is just another one in the movie. Like I said, everybody knew it was coming. It's probably, I don't know if it's in the trailer, but probably, I mean, it's not something special.
Still landed its mark.
Time. All right, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into closing arguments. Starting with Nico, you have 1 minute for your closing. Time begins when you start talking.
Kirk says that my scene was predictable, but the fact of the matter is that even if it was, all the emotional beats still hit. Like when Caesar is dodging and weaving, you feel the excitement and the sense of karma that Draco Malfoy is about to get what he deserves. When you hear that "get your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape" line, nostalgia berries kick in. You start to feel that sense of happiness from back when you were a child and you watched the original Ape movies. By the way, that's the better line than in Kirk's movie. The American Film Institute has a 100 years, 100 top movie quotes list. Damn You All to Hell isn't on the list. Get Your Stinking Paws Off Me, You Damn Dirty Ape is number 66 on the list. And my scene has a callback to that. But you feel that sense of pride. You're like, yeah, Caesar finally stood up for himself. And because anyone can relate to that. You can't relate to Kirk's scene because when has the Statue of Liberty fallen down? You can't relate to that. We haven't lost our civilization yet, but everyone has been taken down a peg by that little asshole. And when Caesar stands up, you feel that pride.
Time. All right, we're going to go over to Kirk. 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
Okay, Nico, during the argument, you literally said you relate to my scene because we're seeing the world destroyed now. So that kind of undercuts what you said. Talk about ducking and weaving. I think Nico doesn't want to watch movies. He wants to watch boxing matches. His scene, it doesn't really land because of, he's co-opting my movie and the quotes from my movie that got used as a cheap callback, a ridiculous cheap callback in his film, and he's trying to take credit for that. No, that is just, it's so bad. It's like Tim Burton Planet of the Apes bad when they threw in all the lines from there. It steps on any emotion, takes all the air out of the room in that scene. My scene is besides the iconic nature of it, my scene is a better shot scene. It's a better made scene. It's a more interesting scene. It's a more important scene to the movie. His scene is, again, you have that one line. No, Caesar has better lines and more emotional lines and more emotional scenes as the talking ape later on in the movie. This is just the one that we saw coming. We knew it was going to happen. It had to get out of the way so the better stuff could happen in the movie later. His scene is boring and not that interesting.
Time. All right, so we'll go ahead. Bring back the judges. I'm going to go ahead and go first on this one. I'm actually going to lean in Nico's favor. I think Nico actually painted the scene better to me. Kirk actually never explicitly stated what his scene was, and they kind of danced around the scene for the entire fight and kind of nitpicked on parts and pieces, and Kirk had to defend his scene a lot more and only got to take a couple shots at Nico's scene, which Nico defended really well. So I'm going to lean slightly in the favor of Nico on this one. Tim.
Actually goes to Cody.
Cody has
he tied Rope last time.
This is why I love debate and like three judges. I can't believe we ever did a judge system with one judge because I'm completely disagree. I think Kirk did paint me the picture of what the scene was, and I think he really undercut. Even though I do love that scene from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but he did undercut it with the callback line that I do think is not needed or wanted in that scene, and they both have. And Nico kind of like did say like he kind of like I don't know. It's kind of weird. There was like even a target where like there's no ape in your scene, and then his response is like that wasn't part of the question. Like Nico focused on things that weren't really important to the thing overall. When they boiled down the scene, he painted the picture for the scene really well, and that was great. But at the end of the day, when it came to throwing punches, Kirk landed more for me, especially in that rebuttal round. His rebuttal was super strong.
All right, it comes down to you, Tim.
His name is not Draco Malfoy. His name is Tom Felton. And that goes to both of you. Every time he was brought up, except for the first time, we referred to him as Draco Malfoy, and I wanted to die. But other than that, I think this is the closest one, honestly, of the three so far. I'm going to go Kirk for the same reason that Cody said. I thought that his final minute was very strong. He pointed out contradictions that Nico had made from the main round to his closing. That was a huge point for me in Kirk's favor. But yeah, I think overall, I agree with Cody too. I think he did paint the scene very well, and even things with Nico saying you don't have a score in your scene. Kirk was like, actually, I do. It's at this moment in the scene. He was they both knew their scenes very, very well. I just think Kirk had the slight edge, and that final minute was the big one for me. So yeah.
All right, so we are at 2-1 in favor of Kirk as we get to our last prep round. This is a must-win for Kirk to end the game now. Kirk wins this, he ends the game. Nico needs to win this to send it to sudden death. So, to the speed round, rather. I am in trivia mode. Your category is Pixar. And the question is the best animal character in a Pixar film. Who is the best animal character in a Pixar film? So we'll go ahead and we will start with Nico. 1 minute for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
So Pixar is really good at telling human stories through non-human characters and non-human worlds. Dory, voiced by Ellen DeGeneres, the most beloved person on Earth, is the best Pixar animal character because she has a great relationship with every other Pixar animal character she comes in contact with, while also having had to overcome a mental handicap through the entirety of her life. A very inspirational human story. She suffers from short-term memory loss, and much like several other special needs kids, she puts her biological family through a lot of emotional stress as a child. She even gets separated from her family for 3 years, wandering the ocean with nothing but her positive and can-do attitude to get by. And it's through that attitude, along with some helpful learning tools, that she's able to overcome her handicap and not only find her biological family again, but extend her family throughout multiple leagues of the ocean in the process. No matter how many times she was told to give up by however many aquatic animals, she didn't stop believing. And she not only made her life better, but she made life better for so many other fish in the process.
Time. All right, we're going to go to Kirk. 1 minute for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
The tradition of animated characters is that they overcome. It's somebody who shows kids and families and everybody that they can overcome. They can be more than what they think they are, what the world tells them they are. And I went with the character in Pixar, the animal character that exemplifies that better than any. That is Remy from Ratatouille. He comes from nothing. He is a literal rat. And he wants to do what is impossible, what he is told is impossible for him, and what technically is impossible for him. He wants to become a chef, and he does that. He succeeds in his dreams. He doesn't give up. He doesn't quit. He doesn't listen when people tell him that he can't do it, that he shouldn't do it, that he's not right for it when people want to stop him. Nothing gets in his way. He perseveres. He helps people along the way. He puts people in position to do the same thing. He not only lifts himself up, he elevates other people, puts them in a position to do more than they would have without him. That is what the perfect animated character does, and that is what Remy does in Ratatouille.
Time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into our main round. All right, 5 minutes of free form. Time begins when you guys start talking.
Hold on, Kirk. You mentioned that Remy lifts people up? No, Remy has a superiority complex that gets so out of hand, he puts everyone and everything he supposedly cares about at risk, human and animal alike. He put his rat family in the crosshairs of an old lady with a shotgun. He put his friendship with Linguini at risk by breaking his promise of not stealing food. He put Linguini's relationship with Colette at risk by constantly undermining her cooking. He put the health and safety of numerous dinner patrons at risk by letting his rat family touch all the food in the fridge without washing their hands. By the way, COVID-19 is still happening, by the way, and he got Gusto's closed down, and he cost the food critic his job.
He overcame stuff. He made it without Remy. Linguini never becomes more than a garbage boy. Without him, he never has his relationship with Colette. He has a high standard for himself, and he has that for other people as well. He doesn't mean to trample on other people, but because his standards are so high, he's trying to bring everybody in the tide behind him. Other people can't keep up. Eventually, he gets them there, but he is always working. He makes Linguini's life better. He makes Colette's life better. He makes the food critic's life better. Ultimately, by making him realize what's important in life and what's important about food and what he loves about food. And that's what he does so well and so perfectly. That's why he's such a great character.
but he takes people down before he can get them back up. Dory doesn't necessarily have that problem. And by the way, you mentioned overcoming. Remy has a gift. Dory has an actual handicap. Dory has short-term memory loss, whereas Remy has a heightened sense of smell, and he feels entitled from that sense of smell. He gets an important job with his rat clan to be the poison checker. He actually gets to live out his dream of being a chef, and yet he constantly complains and acts like a dick to everyone around him. Dory actually does a good job of lifting people up. She sees the good in everyone she comes in contact with, and she's been able to convert even the most stubborn of animals into her best friends.
Let me tell you something about Dory, though. I know you guys are a little younger than me, so you may have like some childhood nostalgia for her. Dory is annoying as hell. And the thing about her, you say Remy brings people down. Dory brings people down. The only reason Dory saves anybody or does anything good is because of dumb luck. Dory is obnoxious. She gets in the way. She's a problem. And again, every time it's just luck. It's just plot armor.
Let me stop you right here. Dory sees the good in everyone she comes in contact with. She's able to convert even the most stubborn animals into her best friends and help them believe in themselves. It's because of Dory that Marlin was able to find Nemo. It's because Marlin's own way of thinking wasn't getting him anywhere. In the sequel, Nemo and Marlin were only able to find Dory in the aquarium because they started using the "what would Dory do" method. It's because of Dory that Hank the Septipus realized that life in a glass box isn't worth living, and there's no point in having 3 hearts if there isn't an ounce of compassion in any of them. Like, Dory lifts people up from like their darkest, most depressing moments, and she does it without any concern for her own well-being.
Remy does the same. He does it in a different way. Every character in that movie at the end, their life is better than it would have been without Remy. He improved. He takes Linguini. He pushes Linguini to do things and become something that he never would have done on his own. He literally pushes him. He pulls the strings. He does it in a different way. It might not be as friendly as Dory or as cute as Dory or as chipper as Dory, but he's getting the job done. I'm glad you brought up the sequels because here's the thing about my character. We're not just talking about character within the movie. We're talking about the character in general. My character carried his own movie. Ratatouille is considered by a lot of people to be one of the best Pixar movies. Finding Nemo is great. You have a wide variety of characters. You have the comic relief, cute, fun sidekick in Dory. When it becomes Dory's movie, it falls off a cliff. That was not a very good movie. It's considered one of the Pixar's big misses.
If Ratatouille is so good, then why hasn't it gotten a sequel? Dory was so good as the sidekick that she got her own movie. She got her own chance to stand out and tell essentially the Nemo story in her own manner. Because we told the physical handicap story, now we're telling the mental handicap story.
I could answer your question because Finding Nemo sold more toys than Ratatouille, and Finding Dory was a giant cash-in. That movie was very weak. It was not done. It was a cash-in. It was
13 years to make, so they wanted to get it right.
Well, or did they just say, "Hey, it's time to cash in"? It's because the movie was not good. I mean, I know it made a lot of money, but that movie does not have a lot of fans. Ratatouille is still considered one of the the height of Pixar's movies. People love that movie, and it has a lot to do with that character. Like I said at the beginning of my
argument, we have top 10 lists on this very channel that this match is airing, and I haven't heard Ratatouille mentioned that much.
Well, outside of this community, I hear Ratatouille much. I'm not a huge fan of the movie, to be honest with you, but I hear people talk about it all the time. It's not my favorite, but it's a lot of people's favorites. But again, it's because this character, what this character does, how he drives himself. You're right. He has a power, but he also has shortcomings. He has those powers, but he's a rat with those powers. Imagine trying to live like that and overcome that. It's
Time.
Crazy.
All right, we're going to get into closings. 1 minute for Kirk when you start talking.
Okay, yeah, Remy does have that extra ability, that heightened sense, but like I said, he has that ability as a rat, and he has to overcome that life as a rat, the lowest form of life people consider. And he wants to go work in a prestigious French restaurant. How crazy is that? But somehow he does it. He pulls that off. That's what he is. That's what the characters in these movies are supposed to do. They're supposed to lift you up and realize you could do more and what you could drive to do. Dory is that force, kinda, but again, it's mostly through her own like dumb luck. Certain things in the movie, yeah, she gets lucky and she can read English or whatever. But there's not a lot to the character that isn't just to move the plot along. Remy is always he's the driving force in that movie. He's the driving force of all those characters. He's the driving force of their stories. He makes their lives better. He makes them realize what they can be, who they can be, what they can do with themselves. He has a high standard for himself. He has a high standard for others, and he brings people along in his tide.
All right. Conceding the last couple of seconds, we go over to Nico. 1 minute for your closing argument when you start talking.
Kirk keeps mentioning dumb luck, but I'd like to remind all of you that we're in a community where we play a game where things are determined by a wheel and random categories. So dumb luck, it has an effect on literally everything. And sometimes it's just better to go with the flow. And that's what Dory is. She's the go with the flow character. Like she gets thrown into so many situations and she helps other people through those situations. She helps Hank survive the touch pool when he's terrified of being touched by children. She helps Bailey rediscover his echolocation. She's an active member of the fish-friendly shark support group. She convinced a bunch of otters to halt active traffic so she could liberate an entire truck of fish back into the ocean. She has a seriously inspiring and unifying impact on every animal she meets. Remy's just an asshole who alienates everyone, human and animal alike. Dory's also a very educational character. She shows the viewers the importance and benefits of learning a second language through her whale speak. She provides examples of learning tools that special needs patients can use to get through life, such as the shells to find a way home, turning the jellyfish dilemma into a game of
time.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go ahead. We'll bring in the judges. We'll go ahead and have Tim start this time since he was the deciding vote last time.
I don't want to. Okay. I think this one's tough. I think ultimately I'm gonna go Nico. The reason why, I think Kirk had one really big slip up, and it wasn't necessarily about the character itself, but I wasn't getting a really great picture of Remy the whole time, and then Kirk even admitted to not liking the movie very much, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way as a judge. And then I think that Nico's just overall these are the reasons why Dory in her world are so great, why she's so great to that world. I think just had a little bit more than what Remy does in his world. So I'm giving my point to Nico.
All right, that's one for Nico. Cody, where are you going and why?
Man, the sun that's going right through my door makes me look sweet.
I was going to say.
So it's really funny when you see Nico's actually really formulated an argument and not formulated an argument. This one, he had an argument pretty much outlined, and he stuck to it pretty strong. He basically started the thing and said, here's everything wrong with your character, Kirk. Now spend the entire 5 minutes pretty much having to defend it and then going back to his, and he's already hitting punches. It was a smart strategy. There was a lot laid out, but he laid a lot out and pretty much painted the picture from start to finish. Do I agree? Absolutely not. Disagree completely. I think Marlon is way better in that movie. But gotta give it to Nico. He had a strategy and it paid off for him. Hats off.
All right, so with that, we are tied at 2 apiece. I also would have gone Nico. I think Nico did a better job at attacking Remy. I didn't get much defense to the Remy as an asshole until towards the end of the fight. So we'll move on to our speed round question. How this is going to work is whoever answers the question first will go first. You have 45-second opening and then a 30-second rebuttal, and we go back and forth as such. So.
Don't yell at each other.
Your speed round question is coming in the realm of Jurassic Park, and it is: What is the best dinosaur moment in the Jurassic series? I'll say it again. What is the best dinosaur moment in the Jurassic series?
I'm gonna go with. This might be it. I'm gonna go with the T-Rex saving the kids from the raptors by the skeleton.
I'm gonna go with the first moment they Ellen's and Ellie see the dinosaurs. The first shot of the dinosaurs.
This is gonna be a good one, Cotton. All right, Nico, you spoke first, so you will go first. 45 seconds when you start talking. As a calculator, not a timer. My stupid cell phone. We're good now.
Fans of Jurassic World understand how important raptors are to the lore, and that is shown in the first movie, especially when you have the raptors basically hunting down the children like a snack. And you think millions of times over throughout the movie that the children are screwed. The raptors are going to get them. And when that T-Rex comes out of nowhere and just bats them like Sammy Sosa in his prime and just makes them retreat, you feel that sense of like, you feel a lot of emotions all at once. You worry that the T-Rex might go after the children. You worry of like, is the T-Rex on their side? Like, you wonder like, are the Raptors going to keep fighting back? But you feel that sense of relief when the humans run away and they get the hell out of
time. All right, Kirk, 45 seconds for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
Point of order. Can I address his argument here?
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. And one more. What's the time after this? What's the whole time frame?
There are 30 seconds after for your rebuttal.
So it's just 45 and then 30 and we're done?
45, 30 done.
Gotcha. Okay. When you think about Jurassic Park, you think about the wonder of seeing these dinosaurs for the first time. And nothing encapsulates that moment more than the scene where they're coming up on the Jeep and they see that dinosaur for the first time. Just their reactions. You see Ellie looking up and she grabs Alan's head and he turns. You hear that da-na-na, da-na-na, that beautiful John Williams score used perfectly there. And then you have that he did it. The crazy son of a bitch, he did it. So many great little character moments in that scene right there. And you feel that energy from them. It encapsulates that whole movie. Everything that's great about that movie is right there. Nico seen this Duce
time. All right, Nico, 30 seconds for your rebuttal when you start talking.
My moment also has a John Williams score, and you can also feel the energy going on within it. It's just a different type of energy. It's not one of wonder. It's one of fear. It's one of worry. It's one of concern. It's one of, I got to get the hell out of this park before I turn into lunch. I don't even know if Kirk can actually name the dinosaurs the kids first saw. I've painted you a picture of the dinosaurs in my scene and what they're doing throughout it. You've got the Velociraptors climbing up the skeleton, trying to get to the kids, trying to get to our heroes. You've got the T-Rex coming in and basically breaking that skeleton, whacking the raptor out.
All right, Kirk, 30 seconds for your rebuttal when you start talking.
This isn't science class. I don't need to name the dinosaur. I don't have to tell you what the dinosaur is because all know exactly what dinosaur I'm talking about because you see that scene in your mind because it's so burned in there. It's so iconic. Nico's scene, when it first happens, they're both cool when you first see them, but on repeated viewings, Nico's scene, hey, wait a minute. How did the T-Rex sneak up on him? The T-Rex bangs and shakes the water around. How does he sneak up? It doesn't really make sense afterwards. My scene, every time you watch that, you get that sense of wonder that Jurassic Park gives you. It's such a beautiful scene. I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. Nico's scene, that's it.
All right, we'll go ahead and we'll start with Cody on this one. Where are you leaning and why?
Oh, man. These are two of the scenes that I would have selected if you said anything from Jurassic Park. I think they are the two obvious ones. There are some other great ones, but this is the two that are correct one. It's always been the downfall to Nico in my eyes that he gets preoccupied on things instead of just focusing on the things that mean the most. So, like, naming dinosaurs, I've named those. Just tell me what's wrong with your scene and what's better. And I think Kirk said it correctly. He painted a picture. I don't have to tell you the dinosaur. You know my dinosaur. You know exactly the scene I'm talking about. It stands out to you. I got to go Kirk on this one. I think he just painted the picture of that scene better for me. So, Kirk gets my point.
All right. I'll go next since I went last. I didn't get to encourage my point last time. I might actually lean a little bit towards Nico. I think Nico did a really strong job in the opening of actually putting me in that scene, and Kirk being vague about his scene and just trusting that I've seen that scene actually kind of hurts the argument for me, especially when Nico called him out on it, and then Kirk goes, I mean, I'm going to give you the cop-out answer of you don't need to have seen my scene because you know my scene, which kind of almost felt like he didn't know his own scene, so I'm going to lean slightly towards Nico.
Fucking bullshit. Okay, so I hate doing this. I'm going Kirk.
Fuck.
I think I took Kirk's rebuttal of you don't need to know what dinosaur it is, you know the scene. It's etched in your brain. I took that way more to I think what he was intending of you don't need to see it, or I don't need to know the name of the dinosaur, you just know the scene. Giving me the John Williams score there, the specific beats of that, the lines from the scene, and then he just even the slight of Nico's scene is just Deus Ex Machina. That really hit for me. And honestly, Kirk kind of ruined that great scene that Nico picked because I never thought about the fact that why didn't they hear the T-Rex coming? That makes no fucking sense. He ruined it for me. Thank you, Kirk. But I am ultimately going to go Kirk.
All right, with that, your winner today is Kirk, the consigliere, Kowalkowski. Very close fight, very strong fight from both of them today. We'll go to you first, Kirk. You have pulled off the win. How do you feel about how you debated today?
Yeah, that was crazy. It's always the fight I'm most secure about and the most confident is always the one I lose. And I was the most confident about that Star Wars fight. So when I lost that, I was really worried because I knew I wasn't going to win PIXAR. And I knew it was 50-50 on the Planet of the Apes. So I knew it was going to come down to the wire. And Nico did a great job. All respect to him. I know I threw some curveballs at him with my topics, some stuff he really wasn't that excited to debate. He did a great job debating it. So yeah, that was fun, and I'm excited to move on.
Absolutely. You are facing Jacoby Bancroft next. Is that someone you're looking forward to debating? How do you feel about
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime I could take on an embarrassed Jacoby, that's a good day. I know we're talking about movies, but if we could sneak in some Lost topics so I can demolish him on that'd be fun. But yeah, Jacoby's going to be a good opponent.
Absolutely, and we'll see you in that match with Jacoby. We go over to our unfortunate loser today, Nico. You did a really strong job today. I think this might actually be your best debate of your career, and you took Kirk the distance. How do you feel?
I fucking hate the speed round so much. Considering I have a championship in a debate league, that statement you just made might be somewhat incorrect, but like debatable.
Fair.
About debates. Ironic. I think I've been around long enough to know that people, I've made it clear that I'm not so much a film buff as I am a competitor. And I'm still playing catch up with a lot of the people who are film buffs. And it's that desire to be at their level that has gotten me this far. I fought my fucking heart out. I really went as in depth as I could with a lot of these arguments. And I'm at least happy that I gave the judges something to think about in the questions that I did lose. Like, how do you approach the question of like what makes the best Bond, what makes an iconic lightsaber duel, and whether or not the lightsaber is the focus or the story. The best scene in Apes. Like I gave it my all. I gave it my all, and the fact that I actually got your vote in that speed round question is at least nice, because the speed round has notoriously been my kryptonite in the debate world, just because like I'm like Batman. I do better with prep time, and just having to pick something off the top of your tongue and formulate a 70-second complete argument with rebuttals is a bitch.
Fair. But you know what? You still played your heart out today. You played a great game. And I think we will see you back at some point. So we'll go over to our judges today, starting with Mr. Brzakala, the champ. We are one step closer to figuring out who you are going to be defending against, down to Jacoby, Kirk, and Robert. Are you worried about any of these people? How do you think this was today as a debate?
Am I worried about anybody? I don't want to play Robert because he's a spider, and I've played him already. So I would like to play Jacoby or Kirk because I have not played them yet, and that would be fun. I am terrified of both of them. They have differing play styles, but both of them in these matches, these have been a couple of the best Nerdgasm matches in a while. Jacoby and Boatman was fantastic. This match was fantastic. So seeing them both, go the distance, it's going to be it's going to be a very, very interesting match, seeing the two of them play, and then to see if they can get past Robert as well. It's looking to be good.
Absolutely. We'll go over to our other judge today, Cody. Thank you so much for judging. What were your thoughts on the debate today?
I'm with Nico 100%. Speed rounds of the devil. The only time I almost lost was a speed round because you just can't prep. Give me time. I'm fantastic. So this overall was a great debate. You could see it. It's just, I think it comes down to like how much work you're going to put in, like on the categories you're not strong on. And like, I'm crazy. Like, I know me and Tim are really excited about the future of where this league is going after this. Like, it's going to change up a lot. It's going to probably introduce a lot more people. So like, this might be like some people might be their last shot at it, going for the title. It could be more people opportunity. So I think this is, I think we have a fantastic group that we had this match for sure. Especially if you would have told me that two people going into the number one contenders match, like to face Jacoby was going to be Nico and Kirk, I'd be like, okay, good joke. Because they're like Nico debates, but like he noticed he's been proved so much since then, and Kirk wasn't huge into the fandom realm. So like it's two areas that you didn't think these two would be here, and they're here, and I think they're mainstays now. So I think that's pretty cool. I hope they stick around to the new version. So pretty cool.
New version, the third version, if you will. And we into 3.0. And I think this was a great debate, but that's going to do it for us. That has been Kirk. That has been Nico. That has been Cody. That has been Tim. I have been Sonic the Hedgehog, and we'll see you guys real soon with another great Nerdgasm. Stick around, bitches. It's going to be a ride.
Way to close it.